Welcome to Sports Management Podcast, where you will hear interesting sports management professionals share their stories, experiences, and passion for the sports management industry. I am your host, Marcus Philipsson. Welcome to episode 101 of Sports Management Podcast. Before we start, I just want to ask you all for a very small favor. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to it on Spotify and Apple and give it a 5-star rating. It would help me very much in getting it visible to more people out there. Thank you. Moreover, this episode is sponsored by InSport Education, the online business school for sport. The best way to elevate your sports career, except for listening to this podcast, is to take part in InSport Education's courses and programs. InSport Education is offering sports management podcast listeners 10% off all of their courses with the code SportsManagementPodcast10. Click the link in the description below and elevate your sports business career today. Now, today's guest is Travis Apple, the Executive Vice President of Executive Search and Team Consulting at General Sports Worldwide. He has worked for the Pittsburgh Pirates, Miami Marlins, the NBA, and more, making him one of the most experienced sales professionals in American sports. He's a believer in the hustle, and he has written a book and is hosting a podcast on the same topic. Get ready to learn his definition of success, why it's good to be greedy in sales, why he wrote a book, his definition of hustle, the importance of mentorship, the discipline of selling, why he loves cold calls, and much, much more. This was one heck of an episode, and I hope you're ready to take notes. Here is Travis Apple. Travis Apple, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here and I'm excited for it.
Me too. It will be a good episode. I'm really excited. You are the Executive Vice President of Executive Search and Team Consulting at General Sports Worldwide. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have really three verticals in our business, and I've spent my entire career, which I'm sure we'll dive into on the sports end. And one of our verticals is executive search. So going out and finding kind of top level, A-level talent for a variety of sports and entertainment. Really kind of an upper leadership and executive team. So we filled 52 roles. Last year we've already filled 18 this year. And then our second one is we do a lot of sales training and consulting and leadership training. So I actually spent 191 nights in a hotel last year. I've kind of certainly on the pace to do the same this year as well. And a variety of clients, helping them from a training and development perspective, both from sales and leadership, as well as consulting. And then our third vertical is the clubhousecareers.com, which is really a career development platform where we highlight, we have monthly webinars, both from a mental health as well as a career development perspective. We have blogs, we have training vaults, and we also have a mentor program. We have over 120 mentors that have people in the business that have raised their hand and said, hey, I want to give back. I want to assist. I want to help. So, those are kind of our three verticals. And we've been at this for 2 years now. And we're certainly excited about what we've built and where the future will take us as well.
I'm sure. And, you have dedicated your life to sales.
Yep. So
can you walk us through a little bit your career path up until where you are now?
Yeah. So I was born and raised in a small town in Ohio. And then, through college, I just wanted to gain as much experience in real life between internships and experience as I could. And, coming out of college, to be honest, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be in sales and decided kind of on a whim that I'd love to move to Atlanta. So I just started cold outreaching and cold calling and cold emailing, cold snail mail to the Atlanta Spirit, which was the Atlanta Hawks and the Thrashers, the NBA and the NHL. And he was able to get myself an opportunity to start in entry-level sales at $8 an hour in commission. It was a 9-month program and it was, let's sink or swim. Here it is. And so from that opportunity, really kind of took full advantage of it and quickly moved my way up into premium seating. I'm in team lead. And then, from there, spent 3.5 years with the Pittsburgh Pirates, where I got into leadership. Then to the Orlando Magic. I spent a couple years there, a couple years at the Phoenix Suns. Then the NBA League office and team marketing and business operations, where I oversaw all of ticketing for all the NBA, W, and G League teams. before joining the Miami Marlins. And, then as I was going through that and got some entrepreneurial experience working in a dynamic pricing technology as the CRO before I started my own company and ultimately joined GSW. So had a great experience, working on the sports team. I always tell people, like, you got to have a passion for the business and a passion for your craft, not necessarily the team itself. I have a rough winning percentage. I have a 330 winning percentage. I've made the playoffs one time in my life. So I don't have many rings to show for it, to say the least, but it's been a very enjoyable kind of journey and experience as well.
Yeah. And of course, I want to, dig a little deeper on this and the sports industry at large. You mentioned you had 190 hotel nights. Sometimes the sports industry from the outside might look glorified. You get the front seat, all the games, but I mean, it's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. So I want to talk about that as well. But firstly, going through your career there, it's mostly sales roles, but then you said with the NBA, you were more in marketing, right? So how was that transition to go from sales into operations and marketing?
Well, it was called team business, kind of team marketing and business operations. I really still honed in on the selling aspect. So like even at Teambo is what we call it, I still oversaw all of kind of ticketing for all the NBA, W, and G League teams. But that was a lot of the reason I joined there, is because you are going to go in and you're going to meet with owners and presidents and heads of sales, heads of sponsorship, heads of marketing, heads of PR, to really kind of, broaden my scope of opportunity as well. So still really, kind of goal 1A was still in the sales realm, but being able and kind of having that goal 1B to understand the overall, marketing aspect as well.
Interesting. And then you mentioned that you had your own company, Catalyst Sport, right?
Yep.
What were you doing with the Catalyst?
Yeah, it's really kind of started in what I do now. It was one of those things that, I always felt that there was a niche where somebody that has been in that team side and on that business side that can transition into helping recruit at a high level, help train and consult, because I can resonate with people because I've been there and I've been in their shoes, and started my own company. And transparently, it got to the point where I was taking a lot of inbound calls, which was great, but it was only me. And so as I thinking about, okay, how can I build this? How can I scale this? I need resources. And so was able to, to kind of, get acquired by GSW and join GSW and obviously join with, a past guest of your end with Lou DePauli. Yep. And really kind of build this, the two of us have built this up, and we're really excited about it.
I'm sure. I didn't know that it was acquired by GSW.
Yep.
Interesting. And you mentioned Lou there. If someone has missed that episode, it's episode 92. So go scroll back a little bit and you'll find that one as well. After this one, They should finish this one first.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Don't cut off too quick.
No. We're just getting started. So yeah, except for, your career, you have had a long career in sales, but you have also your own podcast and you have a book, which I have listened to, which was great. Hustle Your Way to Success in Sports Sales.
Yep. Hustle Your Way to Success in Sports Sales. Yep.
So hustle, that comes up quite a lot because your podcast is also called 52 Weeks of Hustle.
Yep.
What does hustle mean to you?
Yeah, it's a great question, and for everybody that knows me, they know that that's kind of my MO. And, I'm a big believer that, you can put yourself in a good position and good things will happen. And at the end of the day, in the sports world and in any world, you have to control what you can control. And so I wrap all that in. There's three things I always look for in really successful people. The first one is passion. Like, you have a passion for your business, a passion for your craft. The second one is work ethic. Like, are you willing to go above and beyond the Call of Duty? Not the video game Call of Duty, but the true Call of Duty. Like, are you willing to push the envelope and go the extra step? And then the third piece is coachability. Are you willing to, our business is evolving and ever changing. Are you willing to be open to new ideas and new coaching? And those three things have one thing in common, and it's controllables. And as it really ties into hustle, it's like, look, you can control those three things, but there's also ways to control it. It's like, if you're just going to wait to sit back and relax, you're going to get passed up. And so for me, when I look at my entire life, I played multiple sports growing up and in high school and in college. And I looked at it as like, I was never the strongest, the biggest, the fastest, but I was going to outwork everybody. I was going to out practice everyone. When I got into this business, I was one that I was going to make 300 plus calls every day because I knew the next closest person may make one. 100 or 150. And so I was just going to outwork them, when it comes to being in the office. I've always prided myself. I'm one of the first ones in, last ones out. And it's not just the length of the time, but I'm busting my tail every time. And so as I thought about, launching the podcast of 52 Weeks of Hustle, was like, you know what? If I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it the right way. And I'm going to have one guest every week, because that's what hustle is. When it comes to, the book that I released a couple of years ago, Hustle Your Way to Success in Sports Sales, I thought, what better way than, because it's really a blueprint to be successful in this industry. And much of the book talks about like, all right, hey, here's a script, for example, or here's what you can do for an interview. You can just check the box, or you can hustle a little bit more and do a little bit more than the next person, which would certainly go a long way.
So go above and beyond, right?
Yep.
That's what we're talking about here.
Above and beyond at all times.
And looking at your own experience, when you went to school, you were required to do one internship. You did 5.
Yep.
Is that the type of mentality that you look for in talent when you're out recruiting?
Yeah. And I look at for some of those people that may be listening and tuning in this episode and look, I triple major and I was in sports communication, journalism, and electronic media production. You look at my career path, has really nothing to do with that. Now, look, it was a great learning experience, but I learned through gaining multiple internships that wasn't what I wanted to do. And I think that's the challenge. A lot of times people come out of college, they get one internship, they don't really job shadow. And it's like, I had an internship in PR. That's what I want to do. And that's what I did. I started out multiple internships in journalism and PR. And I realized like, this isn't what I want to do. Like I don't have a passion for this. But then through one of the internships, was asked to sell, no training. And I started having success and was like, this is what I want to do. Like, this is what I'm passionate about. And so, so I think, again, kind of talking about going above and beyond, like that was my whole goal in college of like, all right, when I graduate, I have a hell of a lot of bills, right? I wasn't on a full ride. Like I need to pay, I need to make money, and I need to figure out a way to support myself. And so, throughout that process, I wanted to do as much as I could. I mean, I even started an internship, which turned into, kind of a part-time job when I was in college, going door to door, selling kitchens and windows and gutter caps. Do I have a passion for that? No, but I had a passion for sales, and it was just a great sales learning experience for me.
What was it that caught your attention or, your passion for sales? Because I know that when you were younger, you were selling magazines door to door. You were telling now that you were going door to door selling things.
Yep.
Was it the money in the beginning, like when you're young, if you make your own money and you feel, or what was it that intrigued you?
Yeah, I mean,
so
look,
much?
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm greedy. And I always tell people, I always ask the question when I run trainings, like, how many of you are greedy? And it's always funny because like there might be a couple people out of a room of 50 that'll actually raise their hand. The other ones kind of look around. I'm like, you're all greedy. If you want to be in sales, you got to have a little bit of greed to you. And so, yeah, I mean, when you're, 8, 9 years old and you're making money and like, you've got money to go to the local grocery store and buy random stuff, not food and beverage, right? But like candy or toys. And it's like, this came from my own money like hard-earned money. And so that helped. And then certainly like, look, one of the biggest sales jobs, and I always kind of joke with this, I was working at a racetrack. And the GM came to me. This was when interns didn't get paid and said, do you want to make some money? And I'm like, yeah, please tell me more. Like I'm in college. And he said, go sell these trackside banners. They're $1,000. We'll pay you 10%. I wasn't a math major, but I knew that was $100. And the quick math for me, that was 10 cases of Keystone. I was in like Keystone Light. I'm 21 years old at the time. And so it was a little bit of a driving factor then of like, hey, you know what? When I'm in college, I can go out and like I can have some fun and I don't have to nickel and dime or sneak my beers into the bar to drink them. And I think from there, like that just really solidified. And then when I started selling more and more trackside banners, then my goal was, all right, I need more sales experience. And there wasn't a ton of sports teams around, but I had seen an ad in a newspaper that this hardware company was looking for salespeople. And I was like, and I just reached out to the owner directly, started talking to him and said, hey, look, I don't have any experience. Here's what I've sold in the past. I just want to get more sales experience and be able to pick your brain. And he kind of took me under his wing and kind of the rest was history. Because then after I did that, and I was going door to door, getting kicked out of cities, getting doors slammed on your face, but selling kitchens, windows, and gutter caps. It was like, all right, if I can sell something I'm passionate about, I'm going to find a way. So then, yeah, the rest of history is like, you get in this business and it's like, hey, it's long hours. It's a grind. Sports, you're working nights, you're working weekends. But, when you can sell something, that paycheck always helps.
And I think that's important to mention, to people as well, that the sports industry is not just glorified. It's a lot of hard work, and it's weekends, evenings, travels.
Yep.
To know what you get into. But then you have internships, as you said, do many of them. You see what you like, what you don't like, and then you can narrow down your path going forward.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
So yeah, you said you're greedy. You like to make money. You're competitive, I would assume. But you have also said that people shouldn't focus too much on titles and compensation.
Yep.
So what should they focus on more?
Yeah, people. It starts and stops with people. I look at my career journey, and I've loved every step of the way, and I've worked for a lot of really good people. And I always say, people lead. Money, title, and responsibility will follow. If you surround yourself with the right people, and go back to the guest you already had, Lou DiPaoli, one of the first people I've ever met in this business. And I've been fortunate to work, for and with him 3 different times now in my career. And we've always stayed close. He's a huge mentor of mine. And I think as you think about the value of people, and I think about even my career as a whole, not only people that I reported to, people I worked alongside, and people that work for me, like I've learned a ton from everybody. And that's why I always say, and, look, in this world, in this business, like there's a lot of crazy titles. People are under-titled, people are over-titled. I always say you can't get in the way of that. You can't get in the way of like what your job description is, because if you're around the right people, you're going to have more responsibility than what your job description says. And then third, and finally, from a financial end, is like, if you're surrounding yourself with the right people and you dominate your day, you'll be taken care of. Mm-hmm. Like the right people will know, they'll see it, and they'll take care of you. Now, does that always mean that you're going to double your money because you're around the right people? No, but you're going to put yourself in a position. And I look back, and one of the best advice I got from several of my mentors was, when I first got into leadership with the Pittsburgh Pirates and working for Lou DiPaoli and Chris Saber, 2 of my biggest mentors, 2 of my best friends, I got to be this entry-level inside sales manager for a couple of years. And I just felt the knack. I started getting calls about these other roles, and I was like, I was ready. And, they sat me down and they're like, look, like, are you doing more than most inside sales managers? And at first I was like, well, yeah, that's why I'm ready for the next step. And they're like, but why does it matter? If you have the responsibility, now you're going to be able to catapult that. And, I was very fortunate to catapult that and ultimately ended up becoming one of the youngest vice presidents of ticket sales, in our business. And I think it was because I was around the right people that kept challenging me, kept making me think differently and think outside the box and be innovative. But also I was able to gain that real life experience that, I can probably do just as much in a couple years, as opposed to sometimes it takes people 10 years because they don't gain that access and as much experience either.
I think that the people who do focus on the titles are, if you're moving companies, then it looks better when you apply for the next job. Right.
Yeah. And that's, look, I've interviewed a lot of people, and they'll always say, oh, well, hey, can I get this title because, that'll make me look better. And it's just like, well, that you're looking at this for the wrong reason, and that's why I think, people is the number one thing, the most important. And that's what I owe a lot to my Atlanta Spirit days with the Hawks and Thrashers, because, some of the people that hired me, that trained me, that developed me, are some of my best mentors and great friends in this business. And they were able to show me a lot.
Yeah, you talk about that in your book as well, the value of relationships. And that's, what you highlight right here.
Absolutely. It all, and you think about sales in general, sales about relationships. People will buy because they like, trust, and respect you. No different from a leadership end. If you can get buy-in, if you're a leader, if you're a team member, if you can buy into your leader, if you trust your leader, you respect your leader, guess what? You're probably going to work a lot harder. You're probably going to want to be more successful. There was just a study of why people leave companies and leave organizations. This is just business in general, not sports, business in general. And the top 3 reasons had nothing to do with remote work or finances. It was growth and development. They didn't feel like that their leader liked them. And the third one was they just didn't feel, from an overall perspective, they were put in a position to be successful. So they're kind of like going through the rat race every day without a plan or direction. And so I think all 3 of those things can be affected by the right people.
The book also mentions the discipline of selling. So it's a lot of great tips. And, for everyone who's interested in sports sales, I highly encourage them to read or listen to the book as I did, because there's a lot of good tips. But if you're talking specifically, what do you mean with the discipline of selling?
Yeah, no, and certainly I appreciate the support. And, I think even on the book, when I wrote it several years ago, the support I've received and the consistent support has been amazing. And it's one of those things that, that's why I wanted to write, is to give back and to kind of showcase. Because I always think back, 16 years ago when I started this business, I would have loved to have a blueprint to help me. And I think that goes into the discipline. Is the discipline of sales really is the discipline of your life. And what I mean by that is, one of the first chapters, right, I talk about like the interview process and going above and beyond. It's easy to just go online and kind of check the box. It's easy to just go in and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to apply for a job and kind of hope and pray. The discipline is like, okay, you see that job, you do a little research on that job, you find, which is so easy now, who that hiring manager is. Now I'm going to go out of my way. I'm going to like move past that and say, okay, what does this look like now? And what is that process? And then secondarily, once you get into the sales, once you get into this business, like, do you have a discipline of a variety of ways? Like, it could be granular. It's like, if your day starts at 9, are you getting in early so you make your first call at 9? Or are you getting in at 8:59 and then you're not making your first call till 9:30? Like, that's not discipline, right? Yeah. How are you disciplining yourself when it comes to like, look, scripts work. And some of the people that just don't understand sales, like, oh, I don't want to sound like a robot. I'm not saying you have to read word for word, but if you read the script, and they've been around the business way before I got in here, and they'll be in the business long after I'm out of here. Scripts work because it's open-ended questions, it's rapport building, and you have to be disciplined to focus on that, right? And then I think, and then discipline in general is like going back to your passion, your work ethic, coachability. Sales is tough, right? There are days that you're going to walk in and, the day before you made 100 calls and you got hung up on 90 times. Maybe you haven't made a sale and it's the turn of the month and you haven't made a sale all of last month and you're struggling and maybe you're on a performance improvement plan. It's like, all right, what's your discipline? Who are you as a person? Are you coming in and saying, you know what, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing and hoping, or you know what, I'm going to grade myself. I'm going to look myself in the mirror. I'm going to challenge myself to say, what could I be doing better? Like, and why am I not doing more? And so I think that goes all in all, and then all the tips and trades. I just got back from a training last night and, multiple things we were talking about. And, kind of how I ended it was, look, at the end of the day, over the last several days, we gave you a lot of information. Your goal, the key to this is how you apply it. Because you can easily, there's a fork in the road. You can easily go and say, you know what, last couple of days, I learned a lot, but I'm going to stay in my comfort zone and keep doing what I'm doing. Or you're going to go in the fork in the road and say, you know what, I'm going to try this stuff. I may get kicked in the teeth and maybe difficult, maybe get me out of my comfort zone, but I got to be disciplined because I know if I do it and I continue to practice what makes you perfect, you will be better. And, on the sports theme, kind of final thing I'd say on the sports theme, on discipline as a whole, if you're playing basketball and you want to be a better free throw shooter, you're going to practice shooting free throws. If you want to be a better seller, you're going to practice. Like, I remember in this business, and I still do this, I'll role play with friends, family, my wife. Like, I'll role play in a mirror about conversations. Like, I've got a training later today, a virtual training. Like, I was running role playing it this morning so I can hit on my talking points. Like, that is a key of what we need to focus on.
Putting in the reps.
Yep, exactly.
So that goes also into, you talk about preparation. I mean, that goes into the discipline, right? Being prepared and do all of this training so that when it comes, you're prepared. You have said that you love cold calls as well, something that is a lot common in sales, of course. Why do you love that so much?
It's one of those things like, one, if you are disciplined enough, you're sophisticated enough, you could really turn any cold call into a warm call. And what I mean by that is like, especially with the technology we have nowadays, like it's as easy as like go on LinkedIn, search the person's name, find out maybe where they went to college or where they've worked in the past, to have a commonality. Maybe they're connected with somebody else you're connected with, like, on that end. But also like, that's that competitive spirit in me is like, it's easy to work for a team and maybe that's really good on the court or on the field, that you just get a lot of inbound calls. when you can go out, you find somebody, you prospect, you make an outreach, you make an outbound call, and and they ultimately come and buy from you. Like, there's a really cool opportunity. Like when you're able to ring the bell then of like, you know what, I landed this. Like, that's a really cool, unique, fun opportunity. And so that's what makes me passionate about cold calling, is because you're going to be talking to somebody different every day. And, I always say, like, when people like are quick with you or hang up on you, like, call them back. Hey, I'm sorry, we just got disconnected. Or just like have fun with it. Like, at the end of the day, you're selling sports. And I always say, like, no offense, right? No offense to anybody that's, sells vacuum cleaners. I have a Dyson vacuum. It's my favorite vacuum I've ever owned. But thank God I don't have to go door to door and sell it out of my trunk. I'm selling professional sports. I'm selling entertainment. I'm selling experience. I'm selling an emotion. And so when you go out and cold call, like, I've got a little bit of like perk to it. It's like, hey, this is a lot of fun.
Interesting. We talked a little bit before we hit record here. You also have the podcast. You started it roughly, 6 months prior to this podcast.
Yeah.
So we do, both interview formats every week. Hustling.
Yeah, exactly. You know how that, and I respect you. You know how long it takes and the amount of work that goes into it. And no different. And I certainly appreciate it. And that's what I try to do on mine as well, is like, right, you've studied me. You've read the book, you know about me, so you can have that flow of conversation. So I certainly appreciate that.
Thank you. Why did you decide to start your podcast?
Probably similar to why you did, and no different than like why I started, the business I'm in, is when I looked at, this business and I think back of like, okay, you get that question a lot of times, like, what do you wish you would have known back then that you know now that could have made you a hell of a lot better or had a lot more success? And I thought about that and I was like, I was walking into that first interview, I never really interviewed. Like, the internships I got were pretty easy. It was like, hey, I'm interested in this internship. What are you studying? Are you willing to work this? Go. Like, and so as I thought about that, of like, I wasn't anywhere prepped. Like, I don't know if I would have hired myself back then because I wasn't prepped. And so it's like, how do you do that? And so as I kept thinking about that, and one of my mentors is a guy named Bernie Mullen, who owns the Aspire Group. He was the CEO of the Atlanta Spirit when I first started in Atlanta. And a couple things Bernie did. The first one is the first day on the job we were there. And again, I was a 21-year-old kid, just starting this business, had my Value City tie, shirt and tie combo and suit, and very baggy. And, I was fish out of water. And he introduces us and says, hey, welcome to the team. If I can ever do anything, please let me know. So me being the naive person back then, I was like, this guy said like, he wants me to reach out. So I'm going to reach out. So that night I sent him an email and right away he's like, let's have lunch on Thursday. So this is Monday. Now I'm scared. I'm like, well, what am I doing? I'm talking to my boss. Like, what do I prepare for? I'm going into this lunch with the CEO of this company. So on one end, he gave me the time. And I certainly appreciate that because he didn't have to give some 21-year-old kid the time. Like, that didn't matter. The second thing is, fast forward, February of 2020, I'd been thinking about hosting a podcast. I was having dinner with Bernie Mullen. And I said, hey, Bernie, just out of curiosity, would you be a guest on a podcast if I hosted it? And he's like, you absolutely should. You have a great network. You have a lot of people. This would be awesome. And so fast forward, that's when I started it. But the main reason I started it, I wanted to give back to the industry. The industry has been so grateful to me and so rewarding for me and personally and professionally that, I said, you know what, I do. I have a great network and I know there are a lot of people just like me that love to give back. And that's been a fun part about it. I'm just finishing season 3 already and, I've had over 150 episodes. And I just know every single guest has loved doing it because they love giving back. They not only love telling their story, but giving the advice that many people, and that's been the coolest part about it. As you know, it's a lot of time. It's a lot of effort. There's some challenges, but when you get that LinkedIn message or that email, or you're talking to a group like, oh, I listened to your podcast. It was awesome. Like with so-and-so, like they've gave me so much good advice. And it's like, that's exactly why I did it.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That was for me too. Like to be able to, share the stories of the professionals from the industry. That was one for me. And also like networking, as you say, that to build your own and also share with others the knowledge from inside the industry.
Yep, absolutely.
We have talked a lot about relationships. And now also, you mentioned Lou, you mentioned Bernie, having mentors, how important are mentors in the sports industry?
And I would even say outside the sports industry, I would challenge anybody that's listening, like find a mentor or mentors. Like you don't have to just find one. And I think, look, mentorship goes both ways, and this is why I always tell a lot of our individuals that are part of the clubhouse careers is like, look, you've got 120 people that want to raise their hand and want to help, but like relationships go both ways. And some people were sitting back like, well, how could I help somebody that's been in the business? A little bit of it is just you're helping them understand, right? When I talk to somebody in college now, I don't feel like I've been that far removed from college, but it's just different. And so understanding and being able to do that, but finding people that care about you both personally and professionally, and that they have your best interests in mind, and especially on the sales end, the easiest way to say is like, do these people look at you as a number, or are they truly invested in you and your career and your development? And that's why, I have multiple mentors and multiple people that, I've really enjoyed spending time with on the personal end, but also on the professional end. They have pushed me, they've challenged me, they've yelled at me, and they pushed me to where I need to be and where I need to get to.
Yeah. And that was something that I was really, admiring with Lou. That I was when I was doing research for his episode, that people that had worked with him said that he was called the unofficial mayor of Citi Field, and he knew everybody, and like he took an interest in everyone's lives, and what their name, their wife or husband or dog's name or whatever it was, he took an interest, and that really just that relationship part, that you are not just a number, that you are a person, and that you are valued.
Yep, absolutely. No, that's the key to it, right? You're not just that number, and Lou does a tremendous job of that, of showing that, and then he cares, like even, every day when I talk to him, it's one of the first conversations is, how's your wife? How's your daughter? Like it's all about that personal approach, which is sales 101. If you can build rapport and kind of break down the barriers when it comes to talking about like the meat, I always call it the sandwich approach, personal, business, personal. If you can build some rapport, when it gets into talking to business, it just flows as a conversation as opposed to an interrogation.
So if someone now is listening and they are young, they're early out in their careers, how do they find a mentor? I mean, do they cold call them? Do they DM? What do they do?
Yeah, I mean, look, like a subtle plug, right? Go to theclubhousecareers.com. We have 120 mentors that have literally raised their hand and said, hey, I'll be a mentor. But more importantly, one, find out like, what are you looking for in a mentor? And I think that's the biggest thing is like, don't go and just be like, all right, I need to find a mentor because I listened to this podcast or my professor or a coach told me find a mentor. Have a strategy behind it. If you are reaching out to Jim Smith and, whatever team, and it's like, all right, I'm reaching out to you because I saw an episode of the podcast and I liked what you said about this. Like, right, what is that personal rapport? Like that DM, that cold outreach shouldn't be something along the lines of where you're basically a copy and paste. It's, oh, hey, Marcus, like my name's Travis Apple. I'm a senior at this college and I'm looking to find a mentor. Would you be open to being that you can copy and paste and send to 200 people, right? Have that personalized approach, personalized message of why. But, look, and I think when it says go both ways, like the way I always look at it is like, if you reach out to somebody and they don't respond, that's not that person's a bad person. They may be busy, whatever. They may just not have the time to be a mentor. So a little bit of that kind of goes both ways of ensuring that. And so I think just having that strategy and plan behind it as well.
So, and not, as you said, to be more personal, not to whom it may concern and all of this, to have a bit more, correct, maybe to tell a little bit about the person that, like you said, like Jim Smith, and I want you to be my mentor because I saw what you did with A, B, C, and D, and or you have these experiences here, which I could learn from or something.
I go back to giving you kudos, Marcus, right? Like we were connected via an email.
Yeah.
This is the first time we've ever talked.
Yeah.
But, this entire conversation, you had done your research, you had done planning, you'd seen, past articles or the podcast or the book, that you're able to have that flow of the conversation. You've personalized this whole approach. It wasn't, for those listeners, it wasn't like he came in and said, walk me through your career. Like, oh, I just pulled up your LinkedIn page. What was this job, right? You can get in depth. And I think that's the key to finding that valuable mentor. Because on the flip side, you want that mentor to be able to get into depth with you and get a little bit more in the weeds.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
That's what makes this, so fun for me, that I get to dig into, your careers with people like yourself that had more experience than myself, and read books, listen to books, podcasts. I subscribe to your podcast. I saw you released an episode yesterday.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you.
What would be your best advice for aspiring sports managers or sports sales people?
Yeah. Anything you do, find a way to differentiate yourself. And that can start from the beginning, and we kind of briefly talked about it. If you're going for a job, don't just be content sending in a resume, because there's more to that. If once you get your job, don't be content that, hey, you've got a job. Look at it as a career, and don't be content hitting minimum expectations. Because if you hit minimum expectations, everybody on that team, everybody in that business is doing that. How are you differentiating yourself? When it comes to selling a business, a CEO probably gets 50 sales calls a week. 45 of them are just force feeding the product. Be that one that differentiates themselves, that builds rapport, evokes emotion, gets them excited about doing business together. And then as you get into leadership, it's easy. And, I always do an exercise, leaders versus managers. It's easy to be a manager where you just dictate things. Be a leader. Be somebody that can invest in their people and train and develop and have growth in mind.
Mm. Yeah, it's a great picture of these leaders versus bosses, I think it says. And then it's like the team should push this huge boulder. And on the boss's side, it's just he stands screaming like, push it. Then on the leader, he's in front and he's pulling together with his whole team.
I always say, when I challenge people, when they think of leaders versus bosses or leaders versus managers, a manager is going to say, hey, go run through this wall and just watch what happens. A leader is the one that runs through the wall and they may hit the stud. Then they turn around and tell their team, hey, I just hit this stud. Run 6 inches from me and you'll get right through this drywall and you'll be able to go. That's what good leaders do. They're on the front lines with people, which goes a long way. And I think those are the type of people you want to work for, with, and alongside.
Yeah. I actually got that exact question in a job interview once, my opinion on the difference between a leader and a boss. So it's fun that that's still out there.
Still popular. Absolutely.
Yeah. Has there been any bumps on the road in your career? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I think, look, I'll go back to, one of my first bumps in the road back when I was in Atlanta. I got in there and the first month, I'm making 300 calls. The next closest person is like 150. Most people are making 80 to 90 calls. I'm setting a ton of appointments and I'm looking at the sales board and I'm like at the top, but by like $500, $1,000. And I remember talking to my boss and a good mentor and a good friend of mine, Corey Breton. And I was like, we're in a one-on-one. He's like, what's wrong? I'm like, I don't know what else I can do. I'm burning on both ends. I'm plugging away. I'm doing everything and more. And he said one thing, he's like, look, this is a marathon, not a sprint. Keep doing what you're doing, keep dominating your day. Good things will happen. Cause it was frustrating. Cause I was like, I don't know what else I can do. And I'm not seeing it. And then lo and behold, it wasn't the next week, but about 2 months later, it was all of a sudden, it was a week that just everything started clicking for me and started making sales. Then I think that the second biggest thing that I learned early on in my career that I've continued to evolve is, as I started selling and I wanted to get into leadership, and I truly believe I wanted to get into leadership for the right reasons, but I wasn't ready for it. And I went through an interview process in Atlanta with Hawks Trash. I was in premium seating. I was already a team leader. And looking back, I went in this interview and I was like, crushed it, right? Looking back, I would have laughed if I was on the other side. I didn't come in with any preparation. And the reason I say that is I remember sitting down this time with Chris Zaber, who's a great mentor, great friend of mine. And they said, no, you're going to stay when you're in premium seating. It's going to help you long-term in your career. To be honest, I was so mad. I was so upset. I'm like, these guys only care about me as a sales number. They don't want to lose me as a seller. That's why they didn't get the job. And that learning over the next year, before ironically, ultimately, Chris Zaber hired me to become a manager in Pittsburgh when he went to the Pirates. that learning I had over that last year of that was the best learning experience in my life. And I look at my career now, had I not had that year of experience, not only getting turned down, but also like getting more immersed in B2B and premium has helped kind of take my career to the next level. And I think that was a big thing that I was, honing in and looking in on.
Yeah, that's what I feel, everyone goes through the bumps, but the ones that are able to go through it, they, overcome that adversity, they come out stronger on the other side.
Yep.
How do you motivate someone on, when times are tough? What is it that you do that, keep on going to go through tough times?
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to a lot about people, right? It's like you can't manage, managers manage from 30,000 feet view, leaders lead individuals. And so, as you understand, like, who are they as a person, right? I always utilize it kind of three ways is like, do you know your employee? Do you like your employee? Or do you trust your employee? And kind of what category do they fall in? And if you can get your relationship into at the very least but some of those in that trusting factor, and so what motivates them, right? And you understand what their personal goals are. You understand what their professional goals are. You know about their family or their significant other, their friends, like what they're dealing with. I think that goes a long way to help the motivation, because if you go in and you don't know somebody, you're like, you've got to do this, period, point blank. And it's like, whoa, like, who are you? You've got to get to know them. You got to build that rapport with them, because that goes a long way.
Yeah. From yourself, inside, like, how do you motivate yourself if times are tough?
I think it's understanding what that, lack of a better term, like that North Star is for you, and understanding, like, a lot of times I go back and think about, like, all right, what's my why? So, I've got kind of two big whys. My first why was, once I got in this business, I was able to take care and gave my grandma, long story short, was able to bring my grandma to the first ever steakhouse she'd ever been to, and mine as well, like the nice steakhouse. And she said, this is the best meal I ever had. And like, I couldn't have done that without the hard work and effort, because it was expensive, right? The second one is I just had a brand new daughter. And so my why is like, one, I want to give back, and it kind of goes back to money. I want to have enough money to take care of, my family. But more importantly, of like, as she grows up, I want her to see that, like, hey, things aren't always easy, but your dad can bounce back. And just as much as her mom does the same thing, her mom's in the sports business as well. And like, we can bounce back. We can overcome struggles. We can overcome long hours. But, you got to figure out what that North Star is. I strive every single day. Like, I don't want to be content being good or great. I want to push to be elite, period, point blank. I want to push the envelope. I want to find a way to be an elite person in this industry where people look up to you, people, ask about you and need your help, and that you can provide help. And, that's the best thing is when I catch up with people, and, as we sit here today, I see my phone pop up. I have 3 texts from people that, used to work for me, that are now in leadership roles. And who knows, right? They may be asking a question. They may be just kind of catching up and, having fun, because now we're friends. And I think that goes a long way. And that's what keeps motivating me.
Yeah, for sure. I would understand that. And nice family stories that you, of course, to, show your daughter that hard work pays off, and to be able to provide for her, but also that's a great story with your grandma to be able to buy that steak. So how long was that like a goal for you?
It was one of those things, look, my grandma was always, both my grandma and grandpa, like, were carpenter and construction and working in, a factory. And so, but they still provided for me. They provided a great amount, and they, certainly wasn't rich by any means. And so it's one of those things that, when I first moved to Atlanta, my grandma came and stayed with me for a month, and I was able to experience and show her my job, right? Of going to games and meeting my coworkers, meeting some of my clients, and then taking her to a really nice restaurant that, transparently, she was pretty upset about when she saw the pricing. But I was like, hey, I'm going to take care of it. It took her a couple of days. She was a little opinionated, but took her a couple of days, said, this is the best meal I ever had. And that's when it kind of landed. It was like, you know what? You think about your why, and every training I do, I always do a what's your why exercise. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you in this role? Like, why do you want to be successful? And how are you going to continue to push yourself to be the best?
I like that. Finding your why. You can be stuck in that, do you say hamster wheel, or what do you say in English? I don't know
Yep.
how to say. Yeah, you say that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you say
Absolutely.
that. Yeah,
Hell yeah,
you
the
get
hamster
stuck in a
wheel.
loop, and finding the North Star, the why.
Yep.
That's what keeps you. I like that. I like that a lot.
Absolutely. Exactly.
Is there something I haven't asked you yet that you feel is important to bring up?
No, I mean, I think you did a tremendous job. I think, again, I go back to, if you are looking to get into the sports business, gain as much real life experience, whether that be internships, job shadowing, mentorship, to understand what you truly want to do, right? You should never just, oh, I want to work for this team and I'm going to apply for every job imaginable. Like, you're applying for this specific role because this is where your passion is. And then I think once you get in the business, don't think you've made it, right? I haven't made it. I talked about passion, work ethic, coachability. I still have to have a passion every day. I still have to work my tail off, and I still have to be open to learning, because every day is different. Our evolving market. Like, if you ever get to the point where you're just checking the box, you're going to get passed. And you're going to be on the outside looking in. And I always tell people, like, look, sports in general are not the highest paying roles, and they're probably the most long hours, right? Nights and weekends and like long days, stressful. If you're not looking at sports as a career, you should go do something else, right? And if you are like, I want to be in sports, and the answer is because I'm the biggest basketball fan or I'm the biggest hockey fan, you should go buy season tickets. Because I look at all my experiences and all the games I've ever worked, very few games have I sat down and actually enjoyed. I may see a couple outs here or a couple minutes of the game here, but like, you've got to have a passion for it. And so I think, look at this as a career. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And then I think the final thing I'd say is enjoy the journey. Enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. You meet a lot of great people. You can live in a lot of great places. It's a challenge, but you know what? It's a lot of fun, and you can certainly enjoy that journey as well.
Yeah. You reminded me something, and I have to ask that because you say that you haven't made it. Your book is called Hustle Your Way to Success in Sports Sales. So what is success to you? How do you define that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's one of those things. It's, don't be content being good. Don't be content being great. Push to be elite. And when you think of elite, there's very few times you'll ever get to that. So when I look at success, is like, all right, you can have success, but you can't just give up. You can't just be content. Like, you got to just keep pushing. You may never reach it, but you keep pushing. And like, that's the thing that challenged me, is like, no one ever like felt like I just got off a really good training, very impactful, great response, great survey, great testimonial, but I can't go back on the road next week and lay a dud, right? Like, I got to keep moving. I got to keep evolving. I got to keep pushing. And so in everything you do, success is a feat. Success is a win. But, I think winning, no different in sports. Like, if you win a game, that doesn't mean you're a champion, right? If you won championship, doesn't mean you're a dynasty. Even if you're a dynasty, doesn't mean you're the absolute best of all time. And so I think that's the way I view everything I do, is like, I'm never going to be content. I'm just going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep challenging. I'm going to keep finding a way to get to that next level.
Isn't it frustrating to never have like the end goal that you keep pushing?
Of course. Frustrating, but fun. Because I think when I look at frustration as like, man, like I've accomplished this, like maybe I want to kind of take a step back, but then it's like, you know what? Why I got in this? I'm competitive. This is the next step. Like, I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep pushing. No different. I'm sure you've felt that way, right? Like, you're coming upon 100 podcast episodes. I remember when I hit 100, and it's like, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool feat. Like, that was a great accomplishment, but it's like, I'm still like burning that, like, all right, I'm not going to stop, because I know, listen to my first one versus my 50th. My 50th is 100. I'm getting better. I'm still not, I always joke, I still don't have the Joe Rogan Spotify deal. So I got to keep pushing,
and
I got to keep challenging myself to do more.
Yeah. Let's see who gets to that 100 million or whatever he got first. You or me.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe we just need to come in together and do the 1-2 punch.
Oh, interesting. Let's see. Let's talk after, see what we can do.
Yeah.
Awesome. So the final question that I ask everyone is a sales referral question, and I'm going to make it a little bit more difficult for you, because the question is, if you could choose the next podcast guest, who would you think that I should talk to? So you have mentioned, so Lou has obviously already been here, and Lou actually suggested Chris Saber. So you can't say him either. And then you said Corey and Bernie, you mentioned them before, so I will take them out as well.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot of people. I would go, your next guest should be Bill Fagan. He's the CEO of the Aspire Group.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Great history, great experience. First employee of the Aspire Group ever, and has worked his way up to a CEO. So great story. But as you can imagine, like even looking at, the people I've had on my podcast, the list could go on forever. I could, send you multiple guests, but yeah, I would say he's the next one you should talk to. And I love that question.
Awesome. Travis Apple, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Sports Management Podcast.
Yeah, Marcus, thank you so much. Again, I can't thank you enough for coming in from a preparation standpoint. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and certainly for all the listeners, hopefully it was beneficial.
I'm sure it was. Thanks so much. Thank you for listening to the Sports Management Podcast. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on any upcoming episodes. Also, feel free to leave a comment about what you thought about this episode. If you want to get in contact with me, send an email to sportsmpodcast@gmail.com or hit me up on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @sportmpodcast.